Sea talk, stuff to make the seas walk. All right, y'all. It's Sea Talk. We back at it again. Sorry, we a little bit late. How late are we? Dang, we 12 minutes late. That's because of Bobby. Bobby was committing acts of carnage on a plate of food, and we had to wait till he was done with his meal. He was holding the broadcast hostage, saying he's on a new diet, a keto diet, and whatnot. Trish was telling him that he should not be eating anything with a shadow, and so we had to just get through that whole thing, and we're here now. But we got a pretty exciting show. Make sure that you're sharing this in all seriousness. Let some people know that we here, we on the set, ready to go. We gonna do something that we haven't done before, and we're gonna tackle two topics in one night. We're gonna spend 25 to 30 minutes on should black people, black Americans, ADOS, FBA, whatever you want to call us, you know what I'm saying, support Haitian refugees and migrants. And then we also gonna talk about this R. Kelly thing, but we want to expand it, not just talk about R. Kelly, but we want to like do something a little bit different and unique and actually talk about the survivors and the victims of not only just R. Kelly, but sexual abusers that are actually in our community. And how do we really support them? I got my whole ideas about that. But the question I want to ask is what happens to to the parents who knew this was going on? And it begs the question, would you support children like bringing up legal charges on their parents for allowing them to be sexually abused? And stuff can get real interesting. I know of some, in all seriousness, it might sound funny. We all heard about, children seeking emancipation and divorcing their parents, but there are also children out there, you can look it up, that actually sue their parents for making decisions in their life that had a lasting impression on them and whatnot. You know, I'm sure Bobby, he's in the legal field. I'm sure he can attest to like all kinds of things. You could pretty much sue anything and anyone. But could y'all let's tag some people, get some people in the room right now. Let's talk about these Haitian immigrants first. Let's talk about that. This is Grill C Talk for short. But I want to talk about, the Haitian refugees that were coming over via the Rio Grande River and whatnot. I can let Precious or Bobby or Trisha like just update us why I tag some people and whatnot of what's been going on with that. I know Biden sent back some people, but we also want to talk about the difference between a migrant, an immigrant, and a refugee too. We want to be responsible in our journalism tonight. Um, Anyone want to start? Who wants to start and let us know what's going on? With these Haitian migrants and refugees. Don't everyone jump in at once. Oh, Trish, okay, okay. No one wants to talk about it. No, no.
I was waiting to see if anyone else wanted to.
Okay,
I know. I
go
was
ahead,
like,
Trish.
I think
You
you
know,
had
you
commentary on this.
But as we know, Haitian migrants or immigrants or refugees, and we'll discuss the difference between the three. They are going to the border of Mexico and Texas, and the majority are being, I don't want to say repatriated, but sent back to Haiti. And there are even images of them being sent back to Haiti. And when they get there, they just kind of lay all of their earthly materials on the ground and have them pick them up. And they recently, of course, had an earthquake as well as political instability. And yeah, it's just the way that they're being summarily returned to Haiti is very interesting, especially when you juxtapose that against the fact that, for example, refugees are coming from Afghanistan. So when you juxtapose the two, and they're in the Americas, it's just interesting. not interesting, but it's something that
It is
I
interesting when you talk about how they're being treated differently.
right. As well as people probably have seen the images that harken back to slavery with being rounded up with ropes, whips, whatever, um, on horseback. So, yeah, interesting how you juxtapose those.
Ha how have the Afghanistan's been embraced? Like, how has that been different? Is it does anyone know? Because I haven't really been in tune with that. I've been in tune with what's going on a little bit with the Haitian refugees, and I have my own, um, you know, what I'm saying stance on that. You know, having been to Haiti and having some, you know, some comrades over there. But how are the Afghanistan refugees being welcome as opposed to Haitians?
I do know that there's some municipalities that have indicated how many they're willing to receive. But that option, I don't see having been afforded to Haitian refugees. I mean, I don't know about you, but I haven't seen any specific like cities or government or county government saying we're willing to take X number of Haitian refugees.
Got you. And you know, I got my own theories too, but I wonder if they explain it that, you know, Afghanistan is so far away that you just can't, you know what I'm saying? It's it's easier to maneuver that terrain and make it into the United States, you know what I'm saying, undocumented than it is for an Afghanistan, you know what I'm saying, refugee.
Yeah. This is true, but I also think for someone from Afghanistan to come to the United States, there's several other countries that you need to pass that also have the ability to receive refugees, immigrants, and migrants. So, yeah, for Haitians that are already in the Americas and
Right.
considering the political instability that may or may not have been caused by other countries in the Americas, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And also, I think that that's a real nuanced and complicated relationship that America has with Afghanistan. When you talk about 9/11, when you talk about bin Laden, when you talk about the Taliban and Al Qaeda, even if we talk about uh, um, is it Iraq with Saddam Hussein, it's like, you know, they have definitely been instrumental in propping up like the bin Ladens and stuff and occupying Afghanistan for at least two presidents. I know they were in there during the Bush administration and during the Obama administration, just setting up camp and whatnot. Um, and really interesting relationship they have with Afghanistan, you know, um, and how America and their foreign policies, and we can segue back into Haiti, but they have a real hardcore pattern of going into other countries like Afghanistan, setting up shop, talking about they're there because you know, to weed out, you know what I'm saying, terrorists and whatnot, or to prevent weapons of mass destruction, but they, you know, are less likely to talk about how they're mining for oil there and other resources. You
Right.
know what I mean? And make sure that they're tilling the soil that it benefits, um, you know, American domestic policies while they're over there, you know, being real gritty with foreign policies. And the same thing applies to Haiti. It's like they're really disingenuous when we talk about Levi Strauss and Haynes, how they set up their factories there. They use the Haitian people to there's been accusations of slave labor down there. They're not paying these people what they worth. Um, and when we talk about the Louisiana Purchase, it's like we want to be very selective when we talk about Haiti. It's like, and we want to be very selective when we talk about US history. And we want to be like, well, things are in place here because of what the forefathers did and what they, you know, what they documented in our constitution. But it seems like they get amnesia when it's like we wouldn't have Louisiana and the culture of New Orleans, you know what I'm saying, specifically. And a lot of those those areas down there in the South that came through the Louisiana Purchase if Dessalines and Haiti hadn't, kicked Napoleon's butt. And it's just like, then all of a sudden now we forgetting of how much we do quote unquote owe Haiti, what I'm saying, for stimulating our
Mhm.
national economy, our capitalist, system when it comes to Levi Strauss. And I always talk about the iridium, how NASA's down there mining the iridium, how 1 ton, they say, of iridium is worth about $45 billion.
Mhm.
And you know what I'm saying? This is money that these people aren't getting, you know, and not to mention how the NGOs go down there and the corporations go down there and they create this economy because they can mass produce things and sell it at a cheaper rate. So guess what they're doing? They're putting farmers out of business.
Yeah.
So it leads to the economic downfall and also the political unrest. Like, we can also talk about how Obama went down there and changed their constitution, how they're always installing some kind of leader down there that they can control
Mhm.
and manipulate to get things on American terms. So it's just like you
Are you
down there in Texas, though, Princess.
But
I mean,
are you
what?
are
What?
you are you
I was
referring
just
to
going to
Haiti in that last comment? Are
I
you
was
referring to Haiti?
saying,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because I remember reading some comments on that situation, and I'm not saying it's true, but it is something that I kind of ponder about. And they were saying the reason why America don't act like they don't want to help the Haitians is because they're not fully invested in them. Like they're getting something out of Afghanistan. They getting
Mm.
something from Africa and vice versa, but they're not really getting anything from Haiti. And I could say they probably, again, it could go back to the fact that Haiti rebellion was very successful. It could go back to very much of that. So I'm not sure how true that could very well be, but I do know down at the Texas border with them pictures, it looked like something straight out the history books when they talk about slavery and the horses and the whips. Because I literally said I remember seeing an image like that in my social studies book back in like freshman year in high school. And it seemed like they take glee into hitting them with whips.
mhm.
Yeah. They said they're using horses because the horses are able to traverse terrain that motor vehicles aren't able to do. Okay, that's fine.
Uh,
Um,
I think it's
I know
You
I know
know
the
what?
State Department. I know the State Department. The head of the State Department, he resigned and he when he turned in his resignation letter, y'all can look it up. He has some very choice words about America's foreign policy in terms of the treatment towards Haiti. And he was just basically saying, man, we down there doing stuff that we have no business doing, and and the love is not reciprocated. Like, we're down there profiting from the land, the resources, and the people. However, we don't, as it stands, don't have a plan to support those people when they have political unrest and they have natural disasters.
and but the thing is, the U.S. has been in Haiti for a very long time, officially and unofficially. So
Hmm.
I remember President Johnson he at first wanted to make Haiti and the Dominican Republic part of the U.S., but I think for some reason they either couldn't afford it or trying to get a loan or whatever. But we destabilized their banking system back in 1914. I think that was Wilson. So we've been playing around in their monetary system for a long time. I just think it's really also interesting that the president decided to send him back to Haiti. He could have put him on a plane and sent him to France, because France, they paying them money that supposedly Haiti had to pay them because they owed them for their freedom and everything. So why did he send them back to where they came from? There were other, and France has been strangely very silent, but they could also go there. They already speak French, and temporary migrant situation. And so it it's just, I think both the superpowers or countries are really just ignoring what's going on there, and people are, they're placing them again in a precarious situation where someone's going to end up loaning them money again, and then it's going to, the same
Yeah.
keep going on over and over. But we shouldn't forget, like, the U.S. hasn't been meddling in Haiti probably longer than they've been meddling in even Afghanistan.
Yeah. And Haiti has that history, like I said before, of that revolution.
Mhm.
And I feel like they still hold it against them. And um
Hmm.
I never thought about that, Trisha, like sending them to France. I wonder how many Haitians would elect to go to France. I know that when I was down there, the majority of people, majority of indigenous people I spoke to, well,
Mhm.
not really technically the indigenous people, because the indigenous people are Tainos, but the indigenous, the native people of Haiti,
Mhm.
they spoke Creole, and I know it's derived from French. I don't know
Mhm.
um, how, closely accurate it is to the actual language. I wonder if they will be able to survive and exist and be successful speaking a Creole language in France. But I also would like to know if would they even want to go to France.
Well,
You know,
and I know Papa Doc's wife, didn't she go to?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. But Papa Doc was a part of the elite, also too. So I don't know if the regular layperson, the proletarian type, working class person, the poor person would economically poor would elect to go to France, where they would probably just be going to
Mhm.
some slum there in France where they can be marginalized and they won't even be around their culture and their people and have a support group. Um,
Well, Canada
but
silent too as well.
you said what?
Canada's been a little silent as well, but I know they have the excuse right now of COVID of not letting anyone in. But there are a lot of other countries that I think they can express their outrage over the visions of seeing the horses and everything, and the fact that we're sending them back to Haiti. But I don't see any of them saying, "Hey, send them here." If they're migrants, so they're temporary, send them here until the situation improves in their country.
Yeah.
I said the same thing about the Afghanistan people were coming here. I was saying thinking all those countries around it. Why they didn't go to the neighboring country? I've always wondered. I say it seems like United States plays the world police a lot of times. I'm like, where is everybody else in this whole little situation? What's that organization called? NATO? Is that what it's called? I said, where are all them countries at when it comes to these type of situations?
Yeah.
Well, they
I've always
definitely got
wondered.
something against darker people. They have, what I would call stage one melanin people. The darker you are and the catastrophes that you go through, the worse treatment it seems like you get. I mean, France actually imposed and received reparations after they got beat by
Mhm.
Haiti. Like, and this is something that is common for America too, because we all know that the enslavers, the colonizers, they received reparations too.
Mhm.
After the enslaved black people were emancipated, they received reparations. Actually, Abraham Lincoln tried to strike a deal with them so we could avoid the Civil War and say, I will pay you for each one of your enslaved people that you free. You know what I'm saying? And they said, nah, man, we'll just go ahead and fight this out. You know what I mean? And they still running around wearing their colors and their flag like they actually won the game. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
But
The most ass backwards thing you ever seen.
the same thing has happened or happened in France also. I mean, they lost
Yeah.
and they still got paid. And that's what sent Haiti
Mhm.
into massive debt and allow people to come in there and manipulate and exploit those people because they, were in debt because they were just tired of fighting. I mean, I've been to Haiti and it's very small, and that was an incredible feat that they did to be, you know, at that point in world history, a mega superpower. They were the most powerful army on the face of this planet and they got beat. So, you know, uh, it seems like they're getting punished, you know what I'm saying, over and over again, for that accomplishment of defeating the French. But we have a lot to owe to Haiti. And we don't want to accept that. I hear a lot of from black people saying, "Man, why we got to worry about our own? Why should we be supporting, Haitians and whatnot? That money could be used, and that support and those resources could be used, for black people in America." Well, America has monetary sovereignty, so I don't think they're running short of any money. That's just game. You know what I'm saying? Whenever they're in debt, what do? They just print more. You know what I mean? Like, they got the resources. And even if they didn't have the resources, the way that it's set up and crass consumer capitalist economy, once you get the money out and you're here in this economy, you're gonna give it right back when you start purchasing stuff. That's how it works. That's one of the beauties of capitalism. But the economic inclusion historically has not been awarded to the darker you get type people. What you thinking, Bobby, in this whole thing, in this whole scheme? You're muted, brother. You got it.
I contribute a lot of this to the North-South divide. It's something I learned about in global health when I was in college. If you just look at the map and you were to draw a line arbitrarily between the North and Southern hemisphere, you would see that the countries in the North generally dominate anything South. And if you also think about the equator and its relationship to people's skin tone and features, it corresponds directly with the North-South divide. So when we talk about closer you get to the equator or the further south you get, obviously those people are more brown. I don't know that it's not a coincidence that those two things have a relationship, a statistically significant relationship even. I also just think that when you talk about Haiti specifically, and you say, okay, at one point those people were being colonized or they were, suffering from enslavement. Well, when the slavery ended, the parent state had to figure out another way to utilize that country as a resource. Debt is an excellent weapon to create dependence and also an even better weapon to create subjugation moving forward in time. So even if you didn't control the people, you can control their economy. And if you control their economy, then they're at your will. That's exactly what the British attempted to do to the United States with taxation. They felt that they were losing the physical land. They felt they were losing control of the people, and so they tried to hurt them with their wallet. So this is an imperial tactic that's used across global empires for centuries as a way not only to destabilize economies, but to control countries, even if you're not physically there. So I think that it's just another tactic of global superpowers on a historical scale as a way to manipulate without physically being there, especially when you consider how much more efficient it is to not have to actually deploy people to a place and still control it. I mean, that is so much less expensive. The whole issue that the French ran into in Haiti, in addition to losing the war, was that it was just too expensive to occupy it if they were going to be fighting with the locals forever. And so, like you're saying, then they end up having to sell Louisiana below market value. And the United States essentially doubles in size because they can't afford to fight the people trying to free themselves. So like you're saying, do I think that it's possible that there's some national bitterness? Sure. Why not? But I think it's more the case that they figured out a way to still control it even after they left. And I think that that's what the debt is about. And I think that when we talk about debt, I mean, one thing that people don't talk about is even in World War II, when the United States blew up a large German factory that was actually, the planes were being created by American companies in some instances, like General Motors. General Motors got compensated after the Red Tails blew up this factory that they had for engines and parts for German weaponry. So this idea that the national identity and the economic identity could be separate. So, you could be, you could potentially say, oh, GM is an American company, but they're like, okay, we do business. We don't participate in the national debates. It's kind of similar, where you're like, all right, you can win the war, but you still don't necessarily win the economic war. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that losing the economic war has hurt most of the countries where there are people of color throughout history more than any physical battle ever could. I think we see that over and over.
Yeah. Yeah, but they losing a lot, and they lose the physical battle a lot too. Like even if we talk about Afghanistan, I think there was I think there was less than 10,000 Americans that were killed in that war, and like 200,000
Well,
Afghanistan people.
yeah, I mean, I would just say the Middle East is a little bit different because it's probably the most modern conflict you can think of. I mean, we're not
Mm-hmm.
talking about something that happened in 1914. And
Yeah,
so
it's our most recent war that we were in. Yeah.
right, but also it's the most recent global conflict. I mean, that if you look at what happened with Israel and Egypt, for example, and the West Bank going from 1960 all the way until today, it's literally been like a 60 or 80-year war where the West has participated with better technology for all 80 years. Despite not having much of a physical presence in the region, they've dominated because they have better funding and better weapons. So yeah, there has been some losses, but I think that recency bias there is overwhelming because we're thinking about what's happening in the Middle East. But the Middle East is different because we're like the bully across the street that's punching for somebody in that region in Israel. I mean, that's probably more political than we want to be, but I'm just saying that I wouldn't count the Afghanistans and all of that stuff as necessarily comparable directly to what's happening in the West Indies, just because the United States intervention is very transparent and everybody knows about it. Whereas what we're seeing in the West Indies is like economic subterfuge at an imperial level that you have to actually look to see it.
Mm. Carmelita said there are plenty of resources. A major issue is that Black Americans are disconnected from the trials and tribulations of other marginalized Black people abroad. And I think that we 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 know it's happening, but I just don't think that collectively we care enough.
I don't think it's not. I don't think it's a matter of caring. I think it's a matter of being overwhelmed by what we're going through, and lack of exposure. But especially since what we're going through. If you travel at all, or if you speak to other Black people from other countries, then you find out that there's so much that's similar in terms of what we're going through.
And I think many of us are hopeless because they don't know what to do. Like they don't really know how to help Haitians come over the border lines. How can we do that
Yeah.
without subjecting ourselves to harm or even death of helping them? So I don't think it's all of us think that way. I just think we just don't know what to do in
Yeah, that's
that's
fair.
foreign to us.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that once we do, well, I think I think literacy around that is major, but don't y'all think that we are being conditioned and trained not to care about um other Black people in America, let alone people in the diaspora?
I
I
think
think that's a main function and fixture of white supremacy, internalizing it and racism, that we are taught not to care about each other.
the predominantly white mainstream media is not sharing that information. So if we're dependent on that, then we think we aren't doing anything. I personally know of 5 people who are down
Mhm.
at the border that are African American, Black Americans that are helping Haitians right now. It's just they're not spreading saying what they're doing, but they are down there. They didn't wait for a movement to happen, or they didn't
Mhm.
for the mainstream press to say, hey, there are Black people actually down there trying to do something to help them. But they're down there right now doing something.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get that. That's a good point because I do what I can, and I know I can do more. I got, like I said, I have comrades down there. And, our brother Max is down there. I've sent him some things. I'm gonna continue to send him some money and whatnot. But you're right, that doesn't get publicized a lot. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, there is some truth to that. Carmelita also said too many black people have adopted a European mindset of us, Americans and immigrants, who can be considered white, and them, everyone else who doesn't fit that criteria. Um, yeah, I had the book around here somewhere. There's so many books, but um, Toni Morrison wrote a very important book, and she was very efficient and concise. She did it real, real good. She did it probably in less than 100 pages. It's called The Others.
Oh,
And she's talking about how we like to other people. And that's exactly what we do to other black people of African ancestry in the diaspora. You know, we're always trying to figure out how they are other than, or how we are other than. And we do it first and foremost with ourselves, with, color and class and caste systems, always trying to figure out who's lighter, who's darker, the texture of our hair, our African features, what you do for a living, so I can put a value to your existence on this planet. We're always trying to other people. So yeah, I see that, that's very true. Um, Carmelita also said, not to mention Haiti contributes a number of resources that the world consumes. They should reap the benefits of it as well. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. But that's the story of, stage one melanated people on the planet, and black people in the diaspora on the planet. We are the mules for the rest of the world, place, especially when we talk about global capitalism. You know what I'm saying? We the one who, started this stuff off of free labor. So, it ain't gonna stop. They're gonna continue with the same algorithm and the same formula to keep it going. You know what I'm saying? But I think that I wanted to go back to piggyback off what Trisha said and also what Precious said. I felt like y'all both made a really good point. And then Bobby did a great job of having, presenting in a backdrop some historical references of how everything works. But specifically what Precious says, like, we don't even know how to help people.
mhm.
We don't. You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of that comes out of like not knowing how to help people. So we just like, okay, since I don't know how to help people, then I'm gonna start, lending out and offering up some alternative arguments. Like, I don't know how to help you, so it ain't my job, it ain't my responsibility anyways. We gotta worry about black people here. And I think that that should be a part of our action plan. It's like, how do we actually help people? And I think that one of the things that we can do is you can inbox me and I can put you in contact with people in Haiti, like tomorrow, like tonight. If you inbox me right now, I can put you in contact with people where they can put you to work. And it's not even about sending money. You could just send a whole bunch of stuff that you don't even need here that they can benefit from. It's like when you go to Target and you get put on that registry and you look it up and you find out what, the bride and the groom and that family wants. The same thing can happen with Haiti. They can send you a checklist of what we need. It could be as little as, hey man, we need like some notebooks. Because I've been to Africa too, and it's as small as that. You know how many pencils I pick up in a day walking the high school hallways, and I pick them up because I've been to schools that are economically poor in Ghana and how much they could benefit from a pencil. You know what I'm saying? Or a textbook. You know what I'm saying? Or notebook paper. So like stuff that you have lying around the house. I mean, we can figure out how we can pay for the postage to get it there, but some of that stuff is very valuable in those other countries.
One very radical idea that's probably less realistic, but possible, is the wealthiest black people on earth, the Robert Smiths, the LeBron Jameses of the world. Those guys, if they could literally provide some of the physical mechanisms, like the literal machines, to mine some of the iridium and different things that would allow them to mine the material for cheaper than the imperial powers, and that would totally change the structure of how their economy operated. Now, Would they go down without a fight? No. But part of the reason why these countries, even with having millions of people there or hundreds of thousands of people, 10 white men can still control it if they're the ones that have the physical machines to actually mine all the most essential resources. So that part of it is one way to bridge the gap for them economically, where if they can produce the same items or mine it for cheaper, they would be using capitalism the same way that they've been a victim to it.
I wonder what's the reason why, like, our black elite entertainers, athletes, celebrities, alpha capitalists. Um, I wonder the reason why they don't do stuff like that, or maybe, like Trisha said, maybe they are doing it, but we just don't hear about it. But I wonder why, though. I mean, we hear about the Oprah Winfrey's, building schools in, I think, South Africa,
Africa.
if I'm not mistaken. But I wonder why a lot more people aren't doing stuff in Haiti. You know, I wonder if there's penalties that are undisclosed if you go out of your way to help people from Haiti. Because I will tell you this, like, before I went to Haiti, when I looked it up, especially during the pandemic, but even just aside from the safety protocol with COVID and everything, all the writing was on the wall to not go there.
Mhm.
To not go there. They were like, oh no, it's violent. This is that and the third. Oh no, this is that. I went there and it was the complete opposite. But they also said the same thing about Ghana when I went there. They try to make it seem like Africa is so violent, but they don't understand, like, Africa consists of so many different countries. And yes, some regions are violent, just like some regions of the United States are probably even more violent than those regions in Africa. You know what I'm saying? It's all about context. But they were telling me not to go to Haiti in so many different words,
Mhm.
you know? And when I got down there, I found out that they had the lowest incidence of COVID, you know what I'm saying? Um, and I learned what people were doing down there to protect themselves against COVID, you know, and people just laugh at them and they're dismissive. Like when I tell the story about, the Haitians was like, and these are intelligent people. I mean, these are people who went to college, be like, we just, as soon as we got, news of COVID, we just started drinking our ginger. You know what I'm saying? We start drinking our ginger tea. Now I know that's like, a condensed version of what they're probably doing, because the more nuanced explanation is when you go down there, those people ain't got the BMI that makes them, vulnerable to what they said makes you vulnerable to, COVID. You don't see a lot of obese people down there. And that's one of the things that says makes you, you know what I'm saying, vulnerable, Didn't see a lot of vitamin D deficient people. I would like to see their numbers on people with diabetes, which is probably lower because they don't eat the same as us. That's just the bottom line. And I know you can only um assess a person so much by, what they look like physically, whether they're slim or big or not. They just look like they were eating better foods than us and that their diet was better. And I'm sure if you looked into it, the amount of preservatives that they consume in comparison to the American dietary system is a stark contrast. I guarantee you if you look it up. However, here's the catch. If you do get sick down there, their medical infrastructure is not as, you know what I'm saying, robust as ours. So that could get you once you actually do get sick and you go there and they don't have the same technology or the medical advances or, the inventory of things that you may need, especially if you're talking about vaccines and whatnot. Um, that could be a problem. So it's nuanced, but they were telling me in oh so many words, do not go to Haiti. Do not go, you know. Um, so Carmelita White said, I think it's because of Christianity. She sees the reason why they are treated the way they are is well, the reason why black entrepreneurs don't go down there and try to help out is because Haitians are practitioners of quote unquote evil voodoo. That might have a lot to do with it. America as a missionary endeavor has usually gone to countries that accept and given them aid that accept Christianity as their religion. That has been kind of like the appetizer that comes with um like supporting you economically and helping you build your infrastructure, is that if you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior. Like the missionaries, they go to places and they build up places, what I'm saying, and they help them if they accept Christianity. I know that has been a pattern.
Mm.
I have heard of Christian missionaries going into Haiti and helping out. um it will be interesting to know what is the percentage of people who are actually voodoo or voodoo practitioners there in Haiti as opposed to Christian practitioners. That would be interesting to know that too. But if this is all on Haiti, we can move on to the second topic.
Yes,
Yeah, let's move on to
She
the
said
topic.
yes, yes.
I don't want to.
So, oh, before we get off this topic, I did want Trisha, I did want you to break down the difference between a migrant, an immigrant, and a refugee, because that's very important, because they are not calling the Haitian people immigrants. They're calling them migrants and refugees. So what's the difference between those three?
Okay, so a migrant is someone who leaves and goes to another country, but on a temporary basis. So they have no intention of living the rest of their life there. So a temporary situation until something stabilizes in the country that they came from, or they're going on to another country. An immigrant is someone who moves to another country permanently, and that can be for any reason, versus a refugee is someone who's forced to flee their country for economic, political, religious, all kinds of different persecution.
Right. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's important that you know the difference between those things, because
Mhm.
you want to stay educated, and you might get tripped up and calling people refugees when they're really immigrants, and calling someone an immigrant when they're really migrants. You know what I'm saying? And so if we call someone a migrant, then we talk about they're taking refuge resources away from you. If they're migrants, then it's only for a limited time. It's not for like a permanent status, you know what I'm saying, in America. So
Right.
um anyways, so the news came out about R. Kelly. So I guess he got hit with some couple charges. I know for one he got hit with the now this is Bobby's you know lane of expertise. Um I guess he got hit with some sex trafficking.
Racketeering.
Now, yeah, imagine that. And people, like, I'm hearing, and maybe it's what the algorithms are trying to do on social media. They're trying to bring to the forefront the most clumsy, silly, outrageous, and crass um defenses of R. Kelly out there just to get us going. That might be a possibility to how the algorithm is being rigged. Like, why did he get brought up on sex trafficking? Was he really doing that? I think Chuck D released some statement, that kind of got him some heat too. He was like, well, how long are they gonna punish this man, for what he did? Something like that. I can actually read the quote. I can pull it up and read it. Um, but it seems like there is some R. Kelly sympathizers out there who are saying that, I'm not gonna stop listening to his music. And it's just like, what about these other white men who rape people? I've heard all the arguments. What about all these rapists that we have on, um, whose names, represent the buildings that and institutions we go into? We all know George Washington was a rapist. We know Thomas Jefferson was a rapist. There's a Thomas Jefferson High School right here in Federal Way, Washington.
Mhm.
So we hear all these arguments and things of that nature. Um, so another argument that is coming up is what should happen to the parents of these children who knew and allowed R. Kelly to prey on their children. I know from watching, well, I first started from reading the series of articles by the white brother out of Chicago. He's the one who really popped it off. His name escapes me right now. I started reading his articles years ago. And he was the first person that taught me how parents had taken deals. They knew what was going on. They had taken deals in the form of monetary payouts, and I know for sure um, one couple, one mom and dad, allegedly took like vacations, you know what I'm saying, in exchange to compensate them for their child's hurt and abuse. Um, so, and we know he was paying out a lot of people, and we know that parents knew about it. And it's like now people are like, should the parents be charged? What should happen to the parents of these young people who were abused by R. Kelly, who knew what was going on, who took payouts and blah blah blah? Then we get a lot of people talking about, man, I would have went up in there and killed this dude. Well, if I'm sure a lot of people say that, but he's still alive. Then why is he still alive then? If that's what we would have done. And I think a lot of us don't understand how predators do their thing. Like, this is actually strategic. They prey on these families for a reason, because they're vulnerable. And the economic poor and the marginalized, we're those type of people are perfect candidates for that kind of treatment. So that being said, what should be done to the parents who knew R. Kelly was abusing their children? Like, what do you think?
Well, since I'm the one who kind of brought that up, and I had said before, unless the victim themselves wants to charge their parents for their negligence, then that's what's going to happen. Other than that, there's not really much one could truly do about that unless there's absolute proof that the parents did partake in those activities. Now, mind you, I've always said there's no way in hell R. Kelly could have done the things he done without some help, because that's been going on for a very long time. But there are parents who may have been involved, and then there's those parents who were very naive to the situation. So I think it really just depends on what the victims believe what should happen to their parents, if they feel their parents were responsible for allowing those things to happen to them, especially at a young age.
So you're saying it should just come up to um, the young person, who was in it. Like, if they want to sue their parents and bring them up
Yeah,
on legal
that's
charges, shit.
pretty much what it is, because I'm not sure if the states can really come at the parents. I'm not sure if they can or not. I'm not in the legal system to answer that. Bobby?
But we have someone who is.
I knew this
Tank
would
Talk
come up.
Bob.
I knew this would come up. So I'm looking at the Illinois General Assembly. This happened in Chicago, right?
Yes.
Well, no, the Chicago trial hasn't started yet.
Well,
Oh,
I'm just saying, though,
Oh.
just as far as the parents. So I'm just looking at the way that the state of Illinois defines trafficking. And so here's what they said in Article 10. Trafficking victim means a person subjected to practices set forth in B, C, or D. B, involuntary servitude. A person commits involuntary servitude when he or she knowingly subjects, attempts to subject, or engages in a conspiracy to subject another person to labor or services obtained by or through any of the following. And one of them is uses of intimidation or exerts financial control over a third person. That means all the parents that knew are traffickers, period. Because the statute defines trafficking essentially as a conspiracy between conspiracy where parties conspire to control a third person, and by use of force or by use of economic control over that person. So do I think the state could? Do I think that they could go after them and basically say that the parents could qualify as a trafficker? Potentially. I don't know that they have the right to sell a person. So if they are allowing it, and they're essentially getting something in exchange, then that sounds a lot like trafficking to me. Whether or not the DA in that place would do it is a different question because I also believe that the DA could utilize the parent in the case against Robert Kelly. So is the DA there going to value, is that person going to value prosecuting the parent as much as he's going to value prosecuting Robert Kelly? That just seems highly unlikely to me. But I do think that there's a legal mechanism to do it if you wanted to. I think that's there. And then I also think that from a civil standpoint, we just have the tort of negligent entrustment. And negligent entrustment exists everywhere. Typically, you think of it when you allow somebody to drive a car that they shouldn't, but that's the most frequent cause of negligent entrustment. But where one person essentially hands someone over, so think about nursing homes, when the nursing home basically says, oh, person A is in charge of your mother's care, and the nursing home knows that person A is an alcoholic, has an issue with drinking, and instead of taking care of your mom on the job, they come in drunk and their negligence leads to your mother's death. You sue for negligent entrustment if they had a reason to know that that person shouldn't have been taking care of your mom. And this is a similar claim because you would be saying, if you're the person who was harmed, you would be saying, Mom and Dad, you should have known that I couldn't have been trusted with this person. That I was going to be harmed by this person. So I do think negligent entrustment is something that you could consider with regard to this as far as a monetary lawsuit. And then with the criminal part, I do think that you could easily charge the parents as accessories to a conspiracy for trafficking or something like that if they had knowledge and they participated in it, especially if they were collecting benefits. So that's kind of how I would think about it. But like I said, it's going to be extremely unpopular. I think that would be an extremely unpopular technique.
You can't receive compensation, financial compensation, or any kind of compensation from an aggressor once a crime is being committed. You can't do that on the low. That's basically what you're saying. You can't do that.
I would not suggest it because then it's going to look like you're a conspirer.
Right, exactly.
You're going to have a hard time saying to a jury or a finder of facts, oh, Mr. Kelly just sent me on vacation and my daughter just so happened to be there simultaneously being used by him at his full discretion, and no, she couldn't leave.
Yeah, I'm gonna read something from the Washington Post real quick. It says that a jury found R. Kelly guilty on all 9 federal sex trafficking and racketeering charges. The verdict was announced Monday in a Brooklyn courthouse, and it says that he faces 10 years, the mandatory minimum to life in prison for the charges related to 30 years worth of allegations that he physically and sexually abused women and minors. I heard there was some young men involved in this at some point also. This is what I grapple with, though. I think it's Nigeria, Miss Vaughn. She said the Clarys introduced their daughter to R. Kelly and wanted him to mold her into a star because she can sing. I don't see that as co-conspiring if it led to them if their child ended up being raped and then they ended up having an inappropriate, illegal, sexual relationship with R. Kelly. I don't see them trying to pursue some kind of singing career for their daughter as them being a co-conspirator.
That's different.
Parents do it all the time. That's
exactly.
I think it's strange that so Robert Kelly, Mr. Kelly is finally found accountable after 30 years of things he's done, as well as the fact, was it 13 years ago, there was another whole trial that he got off of with literally video evidence. And those parents obviously knew and they had the opportunity to continue, but suddenly had amnesia that no, nothing had happened. Maybe those parents should be the ones that could, be charged because obviously they knew. But all the other parents, first off, even if you saw the documentary or if you followed anything, there were parents that were trying to fight to have access to their kids back. So it wasn't they were just turning him over. Hey, have sex with my daughter and my son. That's not how it went. I think it's strange that us as Black people, we have this conversation, but yet when boys and girls were being molested by the Catholic Church, no one says, hey, let's sue all the parents because they brought their kids to Catholic school. That
Good
wasn't
point.
a conversation. But for us, suddenly, because we finally have someone, a Black man that's being forced to take accountability for what he did, it's suddenly let's blame
Mhm.
everybody else too, because it couldn't possibly just be him. Everyone else enabled him to do these things. Those parents didn't bring the videotapes for him, because at one point I, followed and read the trial transcripts, as well as, I guess, a couple of days ago they played the recordings of like the jurors listening and watching videos of this man raping another person, and in the closing argument they're saying that that clearly wasn't consensual what you saw. So
Mhm.
all of these things, we really should, yeah, if these predators, they select parents for a certain reason and select certain young women and young men for a certain reason, because usually they're the ones that people aren't going to believe. And second, these parents, the majority of them were trying to get access to their kids back. They did not want this happening. They wanted them to be stars or entertainers or whatever. But yeah, the one where he was literally urinating on her and the parents suddenly had amnesia. Yeah, that those parents probably should be charged with something, but the rest of them, come on. It's
So you're saying you agree then?
only the
Because like
first.
if you knew, I mean, like I think the Savages, I think that's what she referred to. That's what she was referencing. Like they wanted her daughter to have a record deal. So I have a problem with that 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 comment, because you want them to have a record deal, but that doesn't mean that you want them to be raped.
Right.
But I will also say that if you knew that this man has a history of allegedly peeing on people, you know what I'm saying, and being married to a 15-year-old Aaliyah who he had sexual contact with allegedly prior to her being 15 years old, then
Mhm.
it's like that's where it gets kind of complicated. Yeah, you wanted your child to have a record deal, but you wanted to do it via a predator. And so how much responsibility does it come that comes, at the feet at those parents, knowing that this dude was severely, severely suspect?
Some of those parents weren't very wise in that. I know a couple of them kept saying that, oh, well, we were going to go with them. Like, so they would be there.
I heard that too. I heard
Art
that too.
always found a way to somehow get the girl alone without them knowing that he was meeting them alone. So
Hmm.
they probably, maybe they should have been, had their cell phones, had all access to everything for them. But I think they probably thought they were outsmarting him. But I mean, he's a predator. He's been doing this for 30 years. I don't know why they thought that
Yeah,
they'll get that record deal out of him and protect their daughters and sons at the same time, because that wasn't going to happen.
yeah. I like the point that you made about the Catholic Church. Like, there have been parents over and over again sending their children to Catholic private schools and Catholic institutions, knowing dang well that Catholic institution has a history of there being, pedophile priests and people who are sexually assaulting and abusing children.
Right. So should they sue their parents for bringing them to Catholic Church, or if they're molested,
Hmm.
that kind of thing? No, they usually sue the Catholic Church, not
And I will also add in, a lot of people didn't believe it in the beginning with Aaliyah. Remember, Aaliyah caught a lot of, she kind of got blacklisted for a short time when that all came out. I'm not sure if anyone remember back in the day, she got booed off a Soul Train Award because the
Mm.
news came out that she was married to R. Kelly.
Mm.
And of course, her parents got that marriage annulled, which is why I'm not understanding why people feel that her parents set her up or sold her for fame. Because last I checked, Aaliyah's uncle was already in the music industry for a long time, and she's also have a relative connected to Gladys Knight. So I find it very interesting how people came up with that sort of theory when it actually, I think with that situation, I think her parents were just was naive and probably
Mm.
thought with her uncle being there, she was going to be safe
Right.
and protected. But unfortunately, I'm not sure if the uncle knew the whole time or he was turning the other cheek. Who knows what was going on at that time? So a lot of
Right.
people kind of label Leah. I hate to say this about that beautiful girl. They call her as the fast ass girl, but not realizing he was an older man messing with a 15-year-old.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Carmelita said, my concern is charging the parents will further traumatize the victims. I think in many cases it will. And then uh sister said, I don't think they would be affected that much. Some don't even get along with their parents, especially Jocelyn and Azriel. That's
I
in
can see both sides of that, honestly.
Are we talking about children or are we talking about grown adults who used to be there? I think those are two different scenarios.
well, I think that there is there was a transition between minors and adults in a lot of these situations. I think Jocelyn and Azriel, what I remember from the Gale interview, they started off as minors and then they transitioned into adults by the time they were being interviewed and being asked about their relationship with Robert Kelly.
Sure, but I guess
But I don't think it's fair to say I don't think they will be effective that much. Some don't even get along with their parents.
how
I
do we
don't
know?
think that's fair.
How do we know?
A good reason why they're not getting along with their
Yeah.
to do with it.
V Comier says this happens every second in third world countries. If the parents are a part of the trafficking, they should be charged. That is facts.
Yeah.
That's big time facts. Big time facts. Like that's why people go to other countries to prey on young people, and they actually harvest young people for sex trafficking in those countries where that's just like the culture. You know what I mean? I know that's what which was dude's name? Epstein. They say allegedly that's what Epstein was doing. Well, no, he got convicted, so there's no allegedly. Uh True Father said this man illegally married her. Okay. Um
Mhm.
Carmelita said many teenagers don't get along with their parents, absent being abused by their parents. Not getting along with your parents isn't synonymous with them not being affected by their parents not being in their lives. Absolutely. I agree with that. I wonder why more children aren't going after their parents then. I mean, there has to be something there. Is it just um the nurturing, you know what I'm saying, relationship they have with their parents? Like that's an act of betrayal. We hear about, children divorcing their parents, getting emancipated from their parents. You
Yeah.
would think that this would be even more of a paramount reason to divorce your parents and, sue your parents and seek some kind of, legal repercussions for allowing you to be abused and whatnot.
A lot of
However,
people.
Uh,
Go ahead.
I just want to say this real quick.
Yeah.
I just want to keep reminding us that predators are predators for a reason. You know what I mean? And let's look at it as simplistic as this. A predator is a hunter. When the hunter goes out to hunt for deer, you know what I'm saying? They're going to get that deer based on a set of circumstances that they're going to set up. And that's just how they operate. They have an algorithm, they have a strategy to extract children away from their parents. They look at everything. There's a profile. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that parents shouldn't be held responsible for allowing their children to be abused, turning a blind eye, being ignorant, especially if they're pimping them out. However, it's easier said than done. Like I said, a lot of people talking about what they would do to R. Kelly, but this man is still alive for a reason, because he got goons, he got protection. So that's a very, very, very hard decision to make. Should I go kill this man? Go put a bullet in this man's heart or this man's head, kill him, then I go to prison and then I can't protect my child
From other
because I'm in
predators.
prison.
From other predators in the world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, 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 I'll take a payout. I can't even imagine, you know, what I would do if one of my children were the survivor or a victim or a recipient of sexual abuse. That's why I was so, and I was so particular of the certain experiences and circumstances I allow my child to be in, because I didn't want to hurt nobody. Um, but life forbid something happened to my child and I decided not to act violently, and then someone saying, "Well, see, Logic, see, if it was me, I would have." Come on,
So can I ask you a question?
But
go ahead.
So
She
if we
sound good.
think about this timeline, do you think of the parents differently from 1990 compared to 97 compared to like maybe 2005? And the reason why I bring that up is I think that when we talk about you saying it's not that easy or it's not that straightforward, some of these people were looking to help their children pursue a dream, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But at what point does he develop a reputation where you as a parent have to weigh the risk reward analysis with that? And why were so many people who were fully aware of the reputation still saying the reward was worth it? That's the reason I think that negligent entrustment is still appropriate for some of those people later down the line. I don't put them in the same box as people who ran into him in 1990 or whenever he just started to gain some affluence and success, and they said, "Oh, this man can help my child's career." Yeah, I mean that's an objective, rational decision. But what about 15 years later, when this video of him peeing on a girl and he's already married a 15-year-old?
Allegedly.
Sure. What about that? At what point do people not get to just say, "Oh, well, those were all rumors, and I don't need to consider that"? Like,
I have an answer to that.
Okay.
And it's just a variation of what I already said before, because he preys on people who have normalized trauma. These people come out of economically deprived and marginalized communities where it's normalized to see Black people, specifically children, being hurt on a daily, and we just deal with it. We're putting kids in casket all the time, and we're desensitized to them actually being raped, hurt. Some people will be like, "Man, at least they ain't murdered. They still alive to make it right." And I know that sounds sick. I know that sounds crass. I know that may sound insensitive. I work with an economically deprived population, you know what I'm saying, throughout my years as an educator. Now, the populations that I work with in Seattle and Tacoma may not be as worse as the economically deprived out of Chicago, in which he preyed on a lot, or other, you know what I'm saying, marginalized communities. But I definitely get a snapshot of people normalizing the hurt that children go through. And that's why I say that Black children are the most disrespected and oppressed people on the face of the earth. They're completely powerless. Completely. I mean, you go to some countries, Black children are soldiers. We got kids with guns in their hands, you know what I'm saying, at 10, 11 years old. It's just like they're, what do they call it? Adulting? Like I forget, they adultify children. I forget the term where they rob children of their childhood and their innocence, and they make children, adults. It's like they accelerate their maturity. You know what I mean? And these people prey on these people. They know that these kids want attention and they need love.
So it's the summary is that the cheetah is getting the slowest of the antelope.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue that people who have more desperation are easier to take advantage of. I think that that's a universal fact. However, if we talk about what's acceptable, I just don't know that there's a good excuse for it. But that's different than charging. That's different than suing. That's just like you always talk about as a culture for the diaspora or whatever. You always say like we need to elevate that. We need to improve our self-love, etc. I don't think I'll ever catch myself saying, well, it made sense under these circumstances. It'll always be we absolutely can't accept that regardless of the circumstances we're in because the outcomes are so perverse. I literally lost a child abuse case today where I didn't know if we were going to win, but it was worth it to take it to trial because I think that it was worth showing that the state was interested in not allowing this type of behavior. And I do think that that sort of righteousness, which is annoying sometimes on a lot of subjects, but when it comes to our most vulnerable people, we have to be that righteous. I mean, that's me preaching, but literally when we're talking about people who have no ability to defend themselves at all, we absolutely have to be righteous. We have to hold their parents to higher standard regardless of the situation they're in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
and this is whataboutism. I don't care what Elvis did.
And Elvis is dead, and he be dead over 40 years.
I mean, but this is what we do.
The wild thing, though, is
he was dead.
That's outraged about what R. Kelly is doing. I guarantee there are people probably in your family, probably next door, probably in your community that there's sexual assault and sexual abuse going on. So to say theoretically what you would do to R. Kelly is very nice, but look at what's going on around you. I looked at was National Center for Violence Against Women in the Black Community. It says here that 1 in 4 Black girls will be sexually assaulted by the time they're 18. 60% of Black women report being subjected to coercive sexual contact by age 18. So that means that there's some disconnect that people are outraged and saying what they would do to R. Kelly. You're not doing that in your own family.
Absolutely.
Do something there. This is your chance. They won't have to get to this point.
Man, that's a good point. That's a.
And I'm gonna add to that. All those are different subjects. Zimmerman still walking around here.
Yeah.
Like it ain't nothing.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, but here's the deal, man. And I like what here we go. Do something like what? Now, I'm about to say something that's going to be really controversial. Seriously. I think if we set the culture in our community for 5 to 10 years where people just start getting their ass whooped, getting killed the same way they get their ass whooped and killed over stealing some money from you or stealing some drugs from you, it will set the culture that children are just as valuable than those drugs you sell and that money that you adore. There's a reason why there's a culture in the drug and criminal enterprise that says, hey man, you might not want to steal something from him.
Mm-hmm.
You might not want to hurt anyone in his crew because you already know what's going to happen. And specifically when it comes to Black children, specifically when it comes to Black girls, because that's what's reported most statistically. Now, I think there is a big differential in the numbers between girls and boys. I think it's a lot closer than we think because I just don't think it's the culture for young boys to speak up and talk about that. But specifically Black girls, when we start stepping up and treating them like that kilo of cocaine that the rival drug dealer stole from you, treating them like, you know what I'm saying, the rival gang member that took out one of your homeboys, what you do to them, when we start putting down the robust, you know what I'm saying, feedback and revenge like we do when people violate us on that level, I hate to say it because I don't want to be the person to enforce it. I really do think that it will be less likely. Like it will be a culture of like, man, you just can't mess with kids like that.
Mhm.
You can't. But what do these criminal enterprises do? What do these drug traffickers do? They make money off of children.
Mhm.
It's actually a strategy. Let's have this 10-year-old who can't get prosecuted be a runner, be a lookout, go do these drug deals for us. Bobby knows what I'm talking about. You got to go.
Yeah, I'll just leave by saying this. I agree with you. I think that the biggest issue is that the children are seen as a natural resource and not people. I mean, they can, like you're saying, oh, can only prosecute somebody at a certain age, so let's get them involved early. Deion Sanders made a great quote recently. There was a time in the Black community where when we saw talented people, and it's a shame that it just related to talented people, but when we saw talented young people, we told those people we protected them from the parts of our community that didn't have their best interests in mind. It seems like that's gone. It seems like now everybody is available to be used for whatever purpose, and we need to return to protecting our children in our community. I gotta go.
Peace, peace. All right. Let's
All
let's
right,
let's
Bobby.
let's 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 sum it up real quick. Thank you, Tank Top Bob. Let's sum it up real quick. What's the plan of action when we talking about this today on C Talk?
I guess I'll go first. When it comes to Haiti, I think us as African Americans or Black people, however you want to refer yourself, you need to understand. Although our experiences is different from Haiti or those in the Caribbean or in Europe or whatever, at the end of the day, we're still on the same boat. We're still in the same boat. We still have challenges that we have some obstacles to get over, and they're all rooted in racism. Regardless how you look at it, it's still all rooted in racism. So as I say, a lot of us are hopeless. We don't know what to do. But hey, if you don't know what to do, that's perfectly fine. It doesn't hurt to research. It doesn't help to look into things. But don't go out saying that, oh well, we got our own problem. Yeah, we do have our own problems, but if they're having a problem coming to here, that's even a bigger problem because that I look at that as numbers, in my opinion. I look at that as more numbers coming to the states to help to build our own community. Doesn't hurt to have other outside black people from outside America to come in with their own concept. I don't see an issue with that. As for the R. Kelly, it's been a long time coming for him. I do, like I said, I do feel he did had a lot of help to get away with it because I just don't think one person could truly do all that. I said there has to be something going on with that. And honestly, although he's going to jail, I still think it's a way. I think it's way bigger than R. Kelly at this point. I really do think it's bigger than that at this point. And as for parents, I hope now, especially in this day and age with social media, I hope parents really start paying attention to the signs of a predator, especially when they're coming after your kids.
That's a good
I don't think
point.
a lot of parents know the flags well to try to protect their children,
That's a good point.
and
Yeah,
that's how I'm gonna
we
leave it on.
definitely need some predator literacy out there, and I'm being serious. Like we don't do that enough. We don't do it in our religious institutions. We don't do it at the park and rec when we're coaching. Like I don't have never ever been to any kind of training or any kind of workshop on how to identify a predator in all my years of coaching.
Yes,
Oh.
like we teach children not to how to spot a stranger and how not to talk to them, avoid them, but we don't talk about predators who, off the time, more than likely be somebody that they trust.
Mhm.
Yeah. What you think? Plan of action, Trish.
Well, as someone with roots in New Orleans in terms of Haiti, I know that we're the same people. We have a lot to thank Haitians for. Haitians are Americans. We owe them a responsibility to help try and help on a micro level. If the government's not doing it clearly, as individuals, we can come together and do things in order to improve our situation. Because I don't even want to say our situation, because we're all Black Americans. Um,
Hmm.
in terms of, and also learn more. If you feel like they're different than you or they're not like us, learn some history or study history, and you'll find out we are literally the same people. Um, in terms of R. Kelly, it's good that he is finally being held accountable, and stop this comparing his situation to every European or colonizer that's done something, because we should be at a higher standard that, well, white men got to get away with it, so he should, come on. Stop sacrificing our children. This is a win for Black children. So yeah, don't compare the two. And also, better training on knowing how predators operate, and confront the predators that are in your family, because there are probably some in your neighbors. Learn how to confront somebody now. That's all.
Yeah, I like that last part, man, and that's easier said than done, but that is true. They need to be called out.
Yeah.
Y'all, we need to start having some family meetings about these predators. Like I'm saying, like if we talking about I ain't snitching, this is
Mhm.
a part of my plan of action. Here we go. Let's go ahead and get into it real quick. If you ain't gonna snitch, all right, then okay. Well then, what you gonna do then?
Mhm.
What you gonna do? You ain't telling the authority. What you gonna do? Are you at least gonna put them on ISO? You gonna put them on ice? You gonna put them on quarantine? Are you at least gonna do that? Are you gonna at least make sure it don't happen again? Are you gonna at least gonna tell other family members so they don't have this fool, this auntie, this uncle babysitting kids?
Mhm.
Are you at least gonna do that? Start being transparent and protecting young people. We need a culture that protects our children, like we protect other pieces of property that are of value to us. And we need to stop inheriting and spreading this really twisted value system that Europeans have given to us, that our children are to be like mules and we just use them, to get ahead in the world.
Mhm.
They are the most vulnerable, and they grow up to be adults that think the same way, that normalize hurt and trauma. Stop that. Build that culture where you start, what I'm saying, protecting these children like you do a kilo of cocaine or a pair of J's. Create that culture. And you know what? Like Trish said earlier when we were talking about Haiti, maybe there is a lot of communities out there that are doing that are like stepping up and protecting children. Okay, let's go out and find them and follow their blueprint and study them and start networking with them and seeing what they're doing. Because I think Trish is on to something. I think there are a lot of communities out there. I'm gonna give my people a lot more credit than that. And when it comes to Haiti, how do we support Haiti? What's the plan of action for that? Get at somebody who knows someone from Haiti and ask how you can help. I mean, there are so many people who have family in Haiti and friends. I'm one of them. Hey, it's been great. Um, I want to thank Trisha. I want to thank Precious. I want to thank Bob. We out. I love y'all. Hey, inbox me if y'all want to contribute to the show. If y'all want to cash app us and whatnot, but also inbox me. First three people to inbox me, I'm gonna send you some soap. I'm gonna send you some complimentary soap or some incense or the grill party manifesto. I'm giving away complimentary gifts. First three people to inbox me. Thank you for checking out C Talk. We see y'all soon. Like and share this. Love y'all. Peace.